You know, they can come down if you sit on it and you push the thing next to it.
Oh,
No, you
oh,
have to
right,
sit on it
okay,
and then your
okay,
weight takes
okay,
it down. You
okay.
push that first one.
Oh, I
That's
see,
it,
right,
yeah. There we go.
Good. So I don't know, do you mind me doing these things? I do feel like it's a kind
Not
of
at
an
all.
imposition to kind of come in
No,
and,
not
you know,
at all,
particularly with
Steve.
Shelby.
No, Shelby just needs to be settled. She's flighty, she's a puppy, and she needs to be settled. It's not an imposition. It works perfectly with Max in the kitchen. As long as Max is okay. And it's not an imposition at all.
Okay.
Our only stricture is we become neurotic about, you know, our evenings being quiet and going to bed early. That's about it. But other than that, no. It's not a problem at all.
All right, good. So, so I had an idea for a topic I thought might be kind of interesting to discuss. Also, because I am just interested, because I guess, in a way, I mean, it's not like it's a topic we've never talked about, but it's
started.
Yeah. But it is one that I think would be interesting.
Okay.
Just because it's connected to this video I'm going to make. Probably the next video, the video I'm going to make on the weekend.
I haven't watched your one yet. I
It's
like
okay.
watching it in bed.
So anyway, so what I'm trying to do on the channel at the moment, which is I'm actually really enjoying, is just making these kind of quite short videos on maybe, and just allowing myself kind of almost any topic I want, maybe with a little bit of a connection to the I Ching if that's possible, but. And so one thing that which is this example, what I'm going to do here with this, is I'm going to just take a topic, like a very simple question, but then ask the I Ching what it says, and then get a kind of, it usually comes and says an interesting thing, and then build that into like a little episode, right? So one question that came to mind, which I have asked the I Ching, and I got a really great answer, and I'll tell you what the answer is, but is the question, what is porn? What is pornography?
Okay, right.
I mean, we know what it is in the sense of the dictionary definition, but what is it really? What's it really about? What's it really about? So anyway, this is what this episode's going to be about. What is porn? And the hexagram I got was hexagram 13. But I'll come back to that. But I guess what I was interested in, because of course, you know, whenever I think of porn, I, of course, also think of a few things. But one of the things is, you know, growing up in South Africa in the 70s and compared to now where literally we know like 6-year-olds can kind of see porn on their mobile phones or on their parents' mobile phone. You know, certainly when I was growing up I guess when porn would have become an interest, which is, I guess, is the 80s, was so tame and vanilla in South Africa, right? We had Scope magazine, that was basically it. It was just had like a girly mag with a few, you know, naked
girls
boobs,
in the bikinis,
in the bikinis,
few,
and
yeah.
and even then they had stars over the nipples. I mean, it was very apartheid. You know, they were very down on sex as well as race. But I'm just wondering because I've never really asked you about this. Like, but what about like? Okay, what about the 50s and 60s? I mean, what was available then for somebody who wanted to see erotic content, which of course was your teen years?
Yeah, nothing. It was all underground. It was all done. It was
all
like,
underground. What, in the sense that someone would bring something back from America?
Yes,
or the
someone
UK
would bring something back. Like when Ian turned 30. And we came to came to England. Was it his 30th? I can't remember now. But we came to England the first time, I think it was when you kids were small, maybe he was older. And he wanted only one thing, he wanted porn. So what we did was we got porn magazines here, which were readily available. And Dad decided he cut the insides, you know, out of the girly, and he wrapped them in British newspapers.
Yeah.
And he sent them to Unc. It was his birthday present wrapped. He got 2 or 3 of them. He was over the moon. What I mean by underground is nobody knew it, nobody saw it. It didn't even come into my vocabulary, Stephen. I had parents who never walked around naked. They never talked about sex, nothing. There was none of that. There was no what's the word? There was no obvious external sexuality around ever.
Yeah.
I mean, you'd see a young sort of Cape-coloured girl, walking with their thin skirts and their whatever, and then everybody would go, "Oh, sis, no wonder there's rape. Because look how they dress," and all that sort of thing. But there was never, where we lived, was a small town, even in Joburg, where I was, even when I was divorced, there was never anything said about it.
There was just no sexual content around.
There was no sexual content around. It was not in the vocabulary. It was never discussed between parents and children. None of us knew what the hell we were doing when we went to our marriage beds, and there was none of that. It was just.
I mean, there were things though, like mail order catalogues, right, which would have had women in bikinis or stuff like that.
Well, not that I knew about in my teens.
Oh, right. Okay.
I knew nothing about that. I didn't. As I say, I never saw anything of that at home. My parents didn't have anything. I mean, kids today see everything, as you say. Flashes up on the TV, flashes up on phones, on media, whatever. Nothing. I never, ever saw anything. In the same way as we never saw what was happening in the townships. We never saw what happened to the blacks when they went to prison. That was all. Well, that part was all clouded in.
Yeah, everything was censored. Yeah.
Censor, yeah. But the same then as porn. There was just nothing about it. Now, I'm sure there were people getting it. Just like when we went to Kuwait, there were people smuggling in booze. They put it in their water bottles. They put it in their hot water bottles. And when it was found, the Kuwaitis generally just took it away. And there was one guy at school who made friends with a couple of Kuwaiti guys, and they said, "Come and we're having a party." And the guy said to him, "We know somebody high up in the what's it called? The guy's customs." And he took this teacher, and this was one of Dad's diving buddies. He took this guy to a big warehouse, and it was full of all the Brits and the Bangladeshis and the Germans and everybody's booze that had been confiscated at the airport. And what happened there was the actual Kuwaiti, especially high up in customs, in government, had crazy mad parties. And
so they would confiscate it, and
yes, they used it.
Use it.
Yes, there was nothing perfectly pure about them. People in high places. So in the same way, they probably maybe had women, you see, coming in, and although there was no porn seen in.
Well, there was prostitution, sure. There was definitely prostitution, but there was very few pornographic.
But it wasn't images not
around,
in books, not in anything. Exactly.
Something
like Lady Chatterley's lover is banned, and all of this. There was all of this stuff going on.
And that's about as racy as it got, because I remember as a teenager, reading the odd racy passage in a Dinar Kunst book, or another, or like a horror book would often have like a few racy passages in, or you would get like Jackie Collins and those kinds of things.
Exactly that.
They would have the odd racy passage, but
it
was really, it was such.
There was just nothing.
Era.
It was just blank. There was nothing like it. Now, when I became a divorcee in 1972. Maybe it was 71. No, you were born 71. It was 72. In September 72, I became a divorcee. If you were a divorcee in those days, you were supposed to be ready meat. You wanted it. You couldn't do without. This is the stereotyped, stupid, negative, almost Afrikaner way of thinking. You were gagging for it.
Because you weren't getting it from your husband.
Because you weren't getting it. You got divorced. You weren't getting it from your husband. You weren't a virgin. We were the only ones that they knew for sure weren't virgins. Right. Although they presumed every woman was a virgin in those days, obviously. So what happened with that was you were easy meat. So I used to go to parties and things, and men used to hitch on me big time.
right.
because of being a divorcee.
Because you were sexual and available.
You were
right,
you
as
were
opposed
sexually
to someone who they would have to maybe marry in order to get into
yes,
bed.
exactly.
Right.
And the 4 or 5 years that I was divorced, although I met Dad when you were 16 months old, he went away for 18 months, whatever. So call it the 3 years that I was divorced. I did have sex. I did have sex
Yeah.
with a lot of guys, and I had the
Was any of it enjoyable, or was it
oh
just a
God,
kind
it
of...
was mad sex fun. Of course it was.
Right.
It was naughty as hell. You know, I was not a good girl because my mother had pushed me so hard and wanted me to be a good girl. I was not a good girl at all. So
This
yeah,
was the 60s. Nobody was a good girl.
70s, yes,
Okay, wow.
70s more. Yeah, 60s, early 70s this was. No, nobody was a good girl, really. But this is not in South Africa. In South Africa, it was okay. In South Africa, you did not have, not in my circle. Maybe it was, I'm sure in the suburbs of Cape Town it was known. You know, it was happening. Now, when Dad and I got married, after a few years, I had a cousin called, oh my God, Miller.
Charles Miller.
Charles Miller, thank you. You probably met him.
Yeah.
Right, Charles Miller and his wife were swingers. Now, swingers were happening in the 70s in South Africa. Very, very rife. Because you could do it in your own home. Nobody could watch you. Nobody knew. The cops couldn't come. Because remember, you were sort of, the whole apartheid thing was, you know, it was gereformeerde based. So there was all this, you can't do this, and you can't do that, and you can't do that, you know. So they were swingers, and they came to visit us one night, or we went there, I think, for dinner. They used to come, and they used to come to us, and they said, we all had wine and whatever, and they approached us and said, will you be swingers with us? We want to swing. Although he was my second cousin, he fancied me, yes. And we said, no, absolutely not. And they actually confessed that they had friends that they had gone on holiday with, that they swung with.
Right.
And everybody went to everybody else's bed. It was like 6 of them or something. And that their third child, they're not sure even if it's his.
Right.
Because they were swinging to such extent, you know. But we weren't interested in that. But that's when we realised that was going on, you see. But there was nothing in a magazine, there was nothing in a book. It was all, that's what I'm saying, it was all underground. It was all under the carpet. So I'm sure there was porn available. But never to me. It was never in my vocabulary. I knew nothing about it.
But I mean, that is such a kind of a funny setup. How does your second cousin come to you and say, hey, Joss, Neil, we're swingers, how about it? I mean, how does he even start? How does he even open the conversation?
Right. Well, when I went to, he worked for the telephonic communications. He came to Joburg for a course, right? He was going out with Helen, his fiancée, his girlfriend in Cape Town, Jewish doll. And he came to Joburg and came to see Gaga. And I mean, you know, his mother and father were Gaga and Zayda's, met them were on honeymoon when they were on honeymoon. And so they met and they were best friends, although I can't remember her name, was Gaga's cousin. So Gaga and her were first cousin. So Gaga's mother and Dada's mother were sisters. So Gaga and her were first cousins, and Charles and us were, okay. So they'd had Charles and Selma, who went to Australia, and then 10 years later, they had two more little ones, which is very strange, very, very strange. So they had this big distance. Charles came to Joburg and fancied me. Okay. And he used to say, let's go to the drive-in, let's go here, let's go here, you know, wanted to feel. And I said, no, thank you very much. I was divorced. That was the 10 months I was living with you with Gaga, after Leon kicked us out, before I got divorced and moved out. He went back to after this course, and about 3 months later he wrote me a letter or phoned me to say that Helen was pregnant. So he had to marry, or he did marry her. So he married her. He had 2 girls and then a boy, this boy that they didn't know if it was hers. And then when the boy was 13, he was about to have his bar mitzvah, she got breast cancer and died. And when she had the breast cancer, she used to say, just you go out anyway, and he didn't. But what was weird about, what I found the most weird about that was, there's to go on dates. So sometimes a guy would meet her, fetch her, or a girl would fetch. Don't know how they met, you see. I know there's one way, and I'll tell you, just remind me Sunday times. I don't know how they met. And there's to come back and discuss it and tell each other what they'd done. That to me was very weird. Now today it's nothing. I'm sure people watch each other. So that's what they were doing. Now, there was one way to get hold of somebody who was in the Sunday Times. On a Sunday afternoon, right in the back pages was meetups. And it was, I'm married, bored as hell, blah, 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 looking for a nice young filly of XYZ. I'm 35, looking for somebody at 30. We can meet in the afternoons or whatever. So that was going on, and that was advertised. I don't know why they allowed it in the back of the Sunday Times on a Sunday, and I used to love reading that. That was all filled with that. I'm married, or I fancy this, or I'm bored, or I'm whatever. So Charles wanted to swing, and no, we weren't having any swinging. But there is no way at all that I was exposed to any of that. There wasn't any way. See, when I got up, I got up, I went to school. Remember, I didn't work in an office either. I didn't work in society, in a busy, if I'd have gone to a lawyer's office, who knows? I went to school. In school, there's no hanky-panky. The men that teach and taught in school in South Africa, even here, but the ones in South Africa were horrible, horrible creatures. Boring, dull, thick, etc. So there was no. I was at school with kids all day, and I was at home with you. So there wasn't really like I was going to clubs or anything. In fact, did I ever go to a club? I used to go dancing with this Dutch guy before I was married to Leon. Very, very nice guy. I don't know where I met him, and he used to take me to, I think it was called the Casablanca in Sandton. Fantastic dancer, wow. And we danced until he had an accident at work, and a door came down, took off 4 of his toes. He couldn't dance anymore. So that was the end of my dancing.
Shit.
With this Holland guy. But then I was about 18, 19. But you can imagine.
And why was that not a romantic partner?
No.
Was that because he was gay, or he just wasn't interested in you in that way?
Yeah, we just were dancing partners. Gaga went mad. You can imagine Gaga and Zaid with me going out with all these weird blokes. I went out with some really strange guys. I don't know if they, like you do. You said you like the strange girls. I don't know if it was, Gaga used to say, you bring home all these lame ducks. I never brought them home, but you bring home all these lame ducks. They're all lame ducks. What's wrong with you, That's another reason that Leon seemed so sane, you see. As I said to you, he was working, he was 24, he had his own vehicle, or the company vehicle, he was decorating, windows.
Yeah,
of
because
smart
Leon
places.
is, even though he's weird, he
can put a good front forward.
He's also very kind of like normal and conservative. He doesn't do weird things, right?
Exactly.
He
put a normal face.
All of his everything he does is quite normal. It's just that he's just sort of weird.
Well,
inside.
if anybody's neurodiverse, he is, as we know. If there's anybody that's odd, we didn't know odd in those days. And it's the same as all that, We know that.
I mean, it's funny because, as I told you, he actually did contact me this week.
And then is it, hello, Stephen, how are you? Just like he's never spoken to you the day before, or does he address it?
Yeah, it's quite strange. So he sends me a voice note. I mean, I didn't even want to listen to it. I just got it transcribed, and I got ChatGPT to summarize it for me. But
good.
he sent me a voice note. essentially telling me about these potato latke cakes that he'd made, and or something like this, and I don't know how they come out really nicely, and so that's how he steps.
That's his entrance.
That's his entrance. But then he was also talking about, but again, he does it in a way that's never direct. It's always very indirect. He was talking about how he'd listened to this podcast with somebody was talking about, I don't know, the fact that they never really got, I don't know, details or information from their father about their father's early life, and he reflected a little bit, right, that you know, he wishes he'd asked his father, I don't know, more things about his early life, or something like this.
Rochelle says that now.
But then
Ian says that.
He didn't make that in any way about us. He didn't like, you know, he
didn't
say
transfer it or see the connection.
Well,
how long
he was
have you
saying
been
something.
asking
He was
him,
saying
Stephen?
something.
How long?
And then, but he wasn't really able to say it. But I suppose, you know.
Would you listen to the tape yourself again?
And then I sort of I sent him a message back, sort of saying, "Oh well, that's lovely." And you know, I mean, as I've said to you before,
good.
I'm always, I'm
to.
all ears to anything you want to share.
To find out about your early life.
Because I am all ears, but he doesn't want to share it.
No, I know.
Or at least not. I don't know. At least not. I don't know, from his own prompting. I mean, maybe if prompted.
But Stephen,
I don't know.
So how many months? Is this the 2-3 months he was there? He was in Kathmandu or wherever. How many months is it since he spoke to you?
Well, I mean, 3 months ago, or maybe 4, I don't know, maybe even 4. Let's say 3. He threw his toys out of the pram and basically sort of said, well, you know, I don't. And it was because
you hadn't answered him back or something.
Yeah, I hadn't answered back quickly enough or something along those lines. But then he got shirty, and I'd sort of said, don't get shirty with me, because you know you've got no right to be shirty with me, because you don't do that either, or something like that, right?
Good, yeah.
But and then he disconnected. Do you want me to open this?
Just something. It's hot.
Yeah.
Just a bit. That's fine. Ooh, I get hot.
Right.
And then disconnected.
Yeah. And then he disconnected for the last 3 months.
How do you feel when you see a message coming through from him? How do you feel? Well, obviously you didn't want to listen to it, but doesn't it make you mad as a March hare? No? You don't feel, how dare he do this to me? No, you don't feel
Not anymore. No, I mean, I know that he's kind of flaky, and so it's just like, okay, now he wants to chat. It's like, it really is like that. It's like, now he wants to chat. I mean, in that sense, I'm really quite sort of at peace with him to some extent, because it's like, if he doesn't want to chat, that's okay. And if he wants to chat, I'll send him something to keep him chatty.
It's like a naughty child, isn't it? Keep him busy, yeah. So, but it's the way he does it. He doesn't say, listen, I don't feel like chatting, I'm going to go offline for a while. He gives you a gob first.
No, he sort of does that.
Does he?
Yeah, he sort of is like, he's like, oh, I think it's best, I'll sort of, I don't know, keep to myself for a while or something. I don't know.
Oh, he does do that.
Well,
I thought he always picks on you.
Well,
because you did this and this and this. I can't be doing with it. You know, it's all that.
It is that.
Yeah.
It is that.
It's more than that. And more that than I just want time, isn't it?
It is that. I mean, it always comes back down to the same thing, which is our exchange is too uncomfortable for me to continue talking to you.
Yes.
I mean, essentially,
yes,
that's what it always boils down to.
Yes.
Our exchange is too uncomfortable for me
can't manage.
to continue talking to you, so I will stop talking to you.
Yes. Which is basically, I suppose, the way he stopped his marriage as well, you see. So it's the same thing. I mean, it was just more violent. He kicked me and said, what the fuck do you
But
want?
lots of people are like that. I mean, this date that I had on Wednesday with this Israeli woman.
Was this a date or on the phone?
It was a video call.
Video call, right.
What basically shut the whole thing down for her was when, halfway through I said to her, and this was actually it was a direct attempt by me to sort of shift it a little bit onto something that wasn't just talking about her, because unfortunately, the first half an hour was her
Jesus Christ.
telling me about her divorce and whatnot, and I don't know, the various...
Well, they know you're a counsellor.
It's the usual things.
Yeah.
But even going, I don't want to...
I don't want to
I'm not going to treat you like a therapist. You're not. I'm not looking for a therapist.
Is she
and then
a therapist?
blah, 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 blah. No, she's an academic in Cambridge.
Okay.
But anyway, so she... So because she's an academic, and because she's also a bit kind of weird, she's Jewish, she's a weirdo herself, she's pretty weird, I would say, I thought, okay, well, let me try and shift the conversation a bit. And I said, what if I told you that I'm actually recording this conversation? Because what I've come up with this idea, but I think we could both utilize this, right? I've come up with this idea of recording the first date and then transcribing it and then having a chat with GPT about the date, what GPT thinks, was it a good date, but equally nothing to hide, right? I'm happy to share with you even the questions I would ask. Maybe you have some questions. And
stunned silence.
Literally,
she then exploded. What?
She didn't explode. No, we continued talking for another 30, 40 minutes. But that for her was
too weird.
That for her was the
you crossed her comfort
I really
zone.
had crossed the line there, which I thought was interesting, because I understand from a certain perspective. From another perspective, I actually don't understand. I don't know what the problem is,
But this isn't the first time. One of them didn't want you using her name, and the other one didn't like you go to GPT. I think this is a privacy thing. And don't you think it's because
it's a privacy thing, but it's also a control thing.
It's also control,
Before we had the video call, this woman, right, we were chatting on sort of WhatsApp, but she refused to send me her voice. She would send me everything in text, and I would say I wouldn't send a long voice notes, but a minute or two, and I'd say, send me a voice note back. It'd be nice to hear your voice. And she sort of made it a little bit like, she made out it was a bit like, because she's Israeli, she's got an Israeli accent, she doesn't like hearing her own voice or something like
bullshit.
that. But it wasn't about that. It was about control. She wanted to be in control, and she was in control of the whole conversation. I sent her stuff about me. She didn't really follow up on them, but she shared lots of stuff about herself and, I don't know, poetry she'd written and books she's done But anyway, and I was interested. I was genuinely interested. But so we went through this whole process where she was exquisitely in control, and I feel like it ultimately came down to the fact that she wasn't in control in that way. That, oh my God, I now had
you
30
taken the power.
minutes of her voice, which I could do something with.
Yes.
I wasn't gonna publish it, but I could look at it. I could think about it. I could analyze it. I could actually ask GPT, is this woman, I don't know, what do you think of this woman? Right?
Yeah.
And that was
too much.
That was a big no-no.
Did she say anything like, don't you dare use my voice for anything, or not? There was nothing like that. Did she ask you not
it was
to?
just about the fact that I hadn't asked her. But of course, if I had asked her, she would have said no. But let's also remind ourselves that this was a video call. I was recording it just as a voice note on my phone.
Yeah.
If I hadn't mentioned it to her,
she would never have known.
she would never have known.
No.
So again, she was getting angry at me for admitting to something that I actually had no reason to admit to her.
Yeah.
She could have been recording me.
Yeah.
She could have had her
Somebody in the room.
psychotherapist.
Yeah.
She could have paid her psychotherapist to sit in and listen and give her notes.
Yeah.
I'm fine with that.
No way,
right? And I would be none the wiser. So she was
Yeah.
getting on her high horse.
Yeah.
But it wasn't really about that, because frankly, she had already admitted 30 minutes into the call that that basically she had projected an idea about me, and she was realizing, speaking to me, that I wasn't that person, that she had come in with this fantasy of some fantasy therapist,
my goodness.
like, and I wasn't this
the
person.
perfect man.
I wasn't the person she actually thought she had matched with, because she projected this fantasy onto me. And I think more for that reason than anything else, she then said no. But she didn't say no straight away. She said no. She after we'd finished chatting, because we chatted for another half an hour.
Yeah.
She said, "Oh, I'm going to go away and think about this, and I'll come back and deliver my verdict," which she then did 24 hours later.
24 hours later, saying, "I don't want to know you, and don't you dare X, Y, Z."
No.
Oh, nothing like that.
No.
Just, I don't think it'll work.
It was. No, you know what? It actually was genuinely. It was genuinely pleasant message. She basically sort of said, no, she actually said more. It was less about that. She did mention it very briefly at the end. She sort of said, I don't know, maybe things shifted because you were recording me. But it was mainly, and I knew this right from the start, because I basically already planted the seed in her head, because I could see it, right? That basically, I mean, she was just classic 48-year-old woman with a kid, newly divorced with a kid, and a very, very strenuous job, even though she's sort of on sabbatical now, but still a pretty strenuous job. And that, frankly, it was all just a fantasy. She had the fantasy of a boyfriend, but actually when she even started engaging, she realized in engaging with me that she actually doesn't have any time in her life to give to a man.
Of course, yeah. Surprise, surprise. How old's the kid?
14.
Yeah. No, that's,
So, But the thing is, she is a walking cliche, because every single woman, 48-year-old woman on Hinge with children is
the same.
Is her.
And
they all are under the fantasy that they have time and space, even just once every 2 weeks for a man in their lives. But they don't, because they have the kid, they have the house, they have the job, they have a great
Probably
circle
parents,
of friends.
They have their friends, and then she'll have all the collegiate at Oxford that she mixes with.
And off they go. They've got very, very full lives, but they've got the fantasy of having a boyfriend. So they get schmucks like me involved in their lives for about a week. We then have a conversation. And at that point, they almost already are looking for an excuse to say, not for me.
I absolutely agree, Steve. I absolutely agree.
Because I promise you, if someone was really, really, really hot for the trot or whatever, if someone was really desirous of me, there's very little I think a man can do to put a woman off if she's really, really, really into him. He can say, he can say, actually, sorry to tell you, mafia, I've got a criminal conviction. If a woman's really into a guy, she doesn't give a shit. She doesn't give a shit.
But that sort of thing doesn't happen anymore. That's not happening anymore.
What?
that a woman's really into a guy and therefore she controls and she'll take anything. The women are more held back. They've got all these buts,
I think it still
ifs,
happens.
ands.
No. I think it still happens in earlier generations. I think women in their 20s, 30s, before they have children, that game is still going on.
Oh, okay, yes, okay.
They're still hunting and wanting to land their man who's going to come and, give them everything that they want and need. But no, I'm talking more about the women in my zone.
Yeah.
And what they are offering or capable of.
Yeah. Now, talking about porn, I mean, I know you watch porn on TV, etc. Would you ever have a prostitute? Would you ever order an escort to come over?
I have thought about this, and I genuinely don't. I mean, I never have, and I genuinely can never see myself doing it. Because I'm stingy, and I will. No, honestly,
I don't even know what it costs.
Right? I mean, I don't just want any. I wouldn't just go with anyone. I would want with a fairly. We're talking probably hundreds and hundreds of pounds. There's no way I am going to pay someone £300, a complete stranger who's probably going to arrive, probably going to smell. I don't even know if I'm going to be fully attracted to them. Then I'm going to have to go through with it anyway, or whatever.
And what about Max?
Just bullshit. The whole thing is just utter bullshit.
Yeah.
And
I mean,
also,
there again, I think that's the age.
I don't like...
and if a guy's on his own, totally.
I know, I'm sure there's plenty of men who do use, as we know, sex workers. But I think you also have to really shut down a side of yourself to
even go through the act.
To go through the act with a complete stranger. You don't know if they are attracted to you.
Yes.
I don't think I could do that. No. I don't think I could
and
force
also,
somebody to have sex with me, frankly.
I don't know what happened. I don't know what happens
and
now.
And I would be worried about contracting an STD.
Yeah.
So, no way I'm ever going to go through with that shit.
I don't know what happens now, but I know in the past they never kissed you. There was no kisses.
No.
It was none of that. It was right. Get on the bed, climb on top, put the money there, and let's go. Horrible.
Yeah, and that is not what sex is about, as far as I'm concerned.
No.
So what's the point? But also, I mean, now, of course, we have porn on tap. You can, there is any sexual content is available on tap, and that's also why, sociologically, this is well known, that men are not getting involved in relationships. I mean, even men who are who
don't need to.
because
they've got a bit of money.
They don't really need to anymore. They've got easy access to erotic content online. They've got lots of sex workers around, very easy to find them. Again, you can go online, hire someone very easily, quickly. And women have not lowered their standards. They're still expecting a guy to, unless it's lust at first sight, but they're still by and large expecting a guy to
play
jump
the game.
through all the hoops, play the game, build
a
connection with them over a period of time and a series of dates. And a whole bunch of blokes, including myself, are like, I can't even be asked. Jesus, it's hard enough work to get online and speak to just some stranger for an hour, right?
But now, did I tell you that before we got married, Leon said he's going overseas? So we came back together. We broke our engagements New Year's Eve. We were in the Northern Transvaal, probably near the game reserve there, and he got, like he does with you, and I'm finished. And so we came home in the car, didn't talk to each other again, and that was it. The engagement was broken. But then about 3 or 4 months later, it might have even been longer, we got back together. I can't remember how, I can't remember who, I can't remember who did it. And Gaga said, well, now, get yourself sorted out and get married this time. Don't mess about. And he said, I'm first going to Europe on holiday.
To sow some wild oats.
Oh,
Jesus.
So he went for about 3-4 weeks.
Yeah.
And when he got back, he literally went to all the brothels that he could find. I can't remember. All I know is that he spent a week in
He went
Amsterdam.
to all the brothels in abroad.
Yes,
yeah.
yes. He spent a week in Amsterdam, loved Amsterdam, and he never came out of the brothels for a week. Surely that should have told me something. I probably thought he was more of a man, you see. I probably thought, boy, this guy's sexy. He must be something.
I mean,
in
Leon
bed.
actually has told me about that part of his life, and he said he went and he slept with one prostitute in that period of time. But I actually believe him. I don't think he did spend because I think.
Well, I know for a week that he was. I know for a fact that he was a week in Amsterdam.
Yeah, a week in Amsterdam. He wasn't going to brothels every day, I promise you. And also, let's remind ourselves, Leon is as tight-fisted as I am. Actually, much more tight-fisted. Can you see Leon forking out?
Yeah, but in those
all
days,
of that
wouldn't
money,
have been hundreds and hundreds.
It would have been
50 years ago.
Still a good in rands. It would have been a lot of rands.
It would have been a lot in rands. Yes. No, well, there you go. That's what he told me.
Once.
Maybe he wanted to appear like, you know, Casanova. I don't know, but that's what he told me.
Once.
That he'd done all that. I must tell you, his sex was terrible, but that's what he told me. But there you go. Maybe that bigged him up, and maybe that made me go, wow, this guy I'm marrying, you know, he's
how worldly he goes off to Amsterdam brothels.
Yeah, to go and get experience. That was so funny.
Weren't you worried though that he was going to bring the clap back to you?
We didn't have.
You didn't even think about sexually transmitted diseases.
We didn't have knowledge of that. I'd never read a book about it. We didn't have it on film. We didn't have it in the library.
Oh, but come on. You would have seen in films people getting syphilis or, I don't know.
No! We didn't have TV. We went to the Biscope on a Saturday night with our parents. And when we were teens, Priscilla and I and Cynthia went on a Saturday afternoon. And I promise you, we were not allowed to see those films. Nothing, Stephen. I knew nothing about sexually transmitted diseases. I knew nothing about anything. I was very dumb, protected, and under the Nats rule. The whole thing was closed down. Dad came, right, and I started going with the dad, and we were walking along one day, and he saw a young black, sexy black girl, and he said, "God, she's cute." And I said, "Shh. Can't do that. You can't say that about people in the street. They're blacks. You can't say that about the blacks." And ooh, how can you find her? She's a black. That was my life. You have to understand. That was how I grew up.
I mean, what surprises me most about that story is just Dad making a sexual comment.
Yeah,
I can't
of course
imagine
it surprised
even
you.
him even saying such a thing.
Yeah. Oh no, Dad was well into sex. Dad took girlfriends at 16. He took his the blonde horsey girlfriend to France, and he took another one, camping another one. Because he was at a boys' school probably. They got together with the girls. No, Dad was sexually far, far advanced to what Stephen was. We had nothing. We were dumb idiots. We had no idea. Absolutely no idea. There was something else I was going to tell you about, and I've forgotten now. Yeah, of course it goes, and I can't get it back. But yeah, it's and do you remember you at when you were doing TEFL, and you were sleeping with we called you Mark, Dad, and I called you the United Nations. Because every month you had another girl.
Well, I think this is a vast exaggeration, because I might have had 3 or 4 foreign.
You had a Chinese girl that thought she was pregnant. Do you remember that one? See, you've forgotten. And at the airport, she phoned you or something and told you no, her period had started. And we discussed it, you and I said, "What are you going to do?" She said, "Well, I suppose I'll transport her, but I don't want the child. I don't want her." She thought she was pregnant. So that was that one. What about the the Russian girl who was pregnant and you banged her? No, or maybe it was
No,
the
she
Russian
wasn't
girl.
pregnant.
Okay, then it was the Russian girl who then gave you something there and you had to go to the
That's
HIV
true. I did
clinic.
get
Chlamydia.
from
And it took 3 weeks for the
Lydia.
results to come back, and you phoned us in Kuwait and said, oh shit, Mel, guess what I've done? There was that one. Italians, you love the Italians. There were a couple of
I
Italians.
love the Italians, but I did not have.
No?
I don't think I've ever had, other than Ida, which was a 3-year, 4-year
Yeah,
relationship. I
yeah.
don't think I've ever had a relationship with an Italian. No, I mean, what have been my foreign, and these are not just one night stands. These are people that I was.
I know you were. Yeah.
That I was connected to
They
for a while.
loved you.
But anyway,
You were the teacher.
Yeah. But Jesus. But yeah. So there was a Chinese student. But they weren't in my class at the time. These were people, and let's just remind ourselves that they were the same age. We were the same age as each other, right? It's not like I was hitting on minors or anything.
No, I know that totally, Stephen. I know that.
Yeah, but that's also because, I mean, that was rife in TEFL because the school was always pushing you to go out and do things with the students.
Of course, I know that. I worked
Parties
in
with the
TEFL.
students and
of course,
pubs
I
with
know
the
that.
students and drinking with the students. And what are you going to do if you're going out and drinking, a bunch of young people together with the young teachers? Well, there's going to be plenty of
course
copping off.
Yeah. There was an older guy that was in my class. And he asked me if I was married, and I said yes. And he said, "Oh, I wanted to take you out for a drink." Yeah. Of course, it was obvious there because you were with them all morning. And what are they doing in England? And bored stiff. What are they going to do? They know if they cotton on to the teacher, they'll supposedly get to see other places as well.
Yeah, and in some ways, almost sleeping with your teacher was the only way, you were going to get
English lessons.
You were going to, well, not English lessons, but you were going to get a lot of English practice because they never valued the practice they got from each other. They thought that was less.
No, of course it was.
They thought, oh well, I'm not really learning English.
It was
because we're just speaking shit English to
and they wanted slang. Teacher, teach us English slang. That's all they really wanted. But you were talking properly, of course.
So
yeah,
I don't know. Yeah.
Oh my goodness,
that's true.
That was funny.
There was that was, yeah, that certainly was one way of doing it. Now I'm sure it's even now. I mean, that was also in the 90s. So I suspect now that's
changed,
maybe harder to get away with. I don't know.
Probably. Do you ever think about Juliet, that you should have hung on to Juliet? I mean, I know Ida because you didn't want the Italian mama sort of thing. But did you ever think Juliet?
Not really Juliet, just because...
Although Juliet, there wasn't a physical...
There wasn't really enough of a kind of a physical side to our relationship, unfortunately.
Yeah.
But I guess of all the people I've dated, she probably would have made the best long-term partner for me, I guess.
Yeah.
If I were to think of... If I had to share I don't know, a life with somebody, I guess she would have been a good person to do that with, even though we never lived together.
I put into Google the other day, and they still show her at that's Maida Vale. They still show her in that. Is she still at that practice?
No, she's not there.
Oh, okay. They still show her there
years.
With what's her name, Abby.
Yeah.
The Jewish doll.
Yeah.
Do you have any idea what she's doing?
Who, Juliet?
Juliet, yeah.
Well, I told you, I don't know if I remember, I once said to you a while ago, I said that I do occasionally drop her an email and I sort of say, oh, how are you doing? And I don't know, if you're ever in London, let's meet up. And she always writes back politely, but essentially, never really telling me anything about herself, and certainly not in any way like, let's meet up. I remember when I told you and Dad this, Dad turned and said, "Well, she's basically just saying fuck off. I don't want to have any. She's just basically politely telling you she doesn't want to have anything more to do with you." And I thought, oh, okay, thanks for actually saying that, Dad, because
it was pretty bloody obvious.
Well, it wasn't actually obvious to me.
Obvious?
No, I don't think it was that obvious until he said it, and then I thought, no, okay.
And when you say she comes to London, so where is she?
Well, I don't know if she does come to London.
But she's not in London.
Well, she went and got married and I think
did she get married at some stage?
I think so, yeah.
To the major or the admiral or the something. He was in the army, wasn't he, or something?
Something or other.
Oh, really? She did, yeah. Okay, interesting. Yeah, I sort of remember them all.
Yeah, oh well. Anyway, I guess that's us. That was a good...
I think there's plenty there, plenty of
good
yummy stuff for you to get your teeth into there, aren't there?
Get ChatGPT to analyse that.
Yeah.
All right, cool, thanks.
I mean, Stephen, you have to know, surely, that I have a past. You have to know that.
Everyone's got a past.
That I have a past, and that, in my divorced years, I went a bit mad.
Yeah.
I had a good time. So
I'm pleased for you.
Oh, yeah.
And equally, I'm pleased. I don't have any moral injunctions against my younger self.
No.
I don't think I was hugely promiscuous, to be honest. But yeah, it means that, yes, I guess
you had lots of partners.
My sexual partners could probably stack up into, more than a dozen. And some people only have 2 or 3 in their lifetime. So,
or only one,
exactly.
Exactly, yeah. And that's okay. I'm okay with it as well. I will never sit on a rocking chair when I'm old, not that I'll remember anything, and go, oh, I shouldn't have done this, I should have done that, I should have done that. I don't have any regrets, and I don't have any problems about going, oh, look at me, I'm old now, and I didn't do this, and I didn't do that, and I didn't do that.
Yeah.
I did. I travelled. I had sexual partners. I had 3 husbands. Christ, I had 2 wonderful sons. A couple of grandkids. I mean, I came to London. I've lived in the capital of, second biggest capital of the world, blah, 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 blah. So it's not like I stayed in South Africa in the boondocks, Bondoki. So I don't have any sort of thoughts or doubts about that. It doesn't bother me at all.
Yeah.
A lot of people I speak to my age do. I wish this and I wish that, and I never travelled and I never did this, I never did that. Valerie's got a friend who's 64. He's never been on an aeroplane ever. They go on the car, and they go with their dog, and they go on caravanning. She's never been on an aeroplane. Which is crazy in this day and age.
Well, a little bit, but I sort of go from my perspective. I go, well, so what? Because I don't necessarily think being on an aeroplane is...
No, I don't think it's all
anything,
that.
Frankly.
I know. I don't think it's all that. But it sort of ticks the boxes of things you've done in your life. And one of them is flying somewhere, for God's sake.
They're all just...
I know they're just
socially determined, because what are supposed to be the things that we're all supposed to do in our lives, that's all just determined by some social script that we all follow.
I guess so. Yeah. So you don't sit there with any regrets. Do you have any regrets?
I mean, I regret that I'm not having sex now.
Yes.
I genuinely do. I feel like, I'm missing out.
I'm young, yeah.
Because I'm still up for doing that.
Young, yeah.
So I regret that I'm not having sex now, but at the same time, unfortunately, I can also see
you don't want sex for sex sake. How
it's really, really kind of like, to get it, I'm starting to think like, I just can't be asked to put in the effort.
It's
like,
all the
you
extra
know,
bits, exactly.
I can't
Yeah.
be asked to do the seduction to get
Yeah.
a little roll in the hay, as
Yeah,
it were, right?
yeah.
Because you have to literally, I
Yeah.
don't know, go through.
Cook for them and have
You
them
have to do
over and
so
clean the house and
much
all this
just
other
to have
jazz.
a little bit of
nookie.
sexual contact
Yeah.
with another human being. Jesus Christ.
Yeah.
No other animal has to do all of that. Well, I
No.
guess maybe, I don't know, maybe they do. Maybe they do have to, as we know, lots of animals
Well,
do
no,
have to do
animals
the whole song and
don't have
dance.
casual sex, though.
Yeah. No, that's true. Well,
They will do the song and
monkeys
dance.
do. The monkeys have casual sex.
Are you sure?
Yeah.
Oh, okay, monkeys, but they're close to us.
Yeah.
But if you think about, I'm talking about Attenborough, we've watched all of them. They go, so they've got one person and they do this, from the birds that get the nest all ready. And then he does a little dance and his feathers come out.
No, that's true.
And then
it's all
the females are
in
brown
service of
and they
the
all walk around and decide, or they
reproductive
fly
act,
off, now I don't like what you've done here. And then they settle down, particularly birds, they evidently mate for life. But yeah, they don't actually date. They don't date.
No.
Theirs is procreation, full stop, done.
Yeah. They don't date. They don't have this whole courtship phase. All this.
They'll courtship for 20 minutes and then boom, boom.
Yeah,
and then
exactly.
a lot of them die.
Yeah.
Or
but it's a
swim
lot
off.
it's a lot of work, and it's a lot of work for, at every point. It's a lot of work for something that could falter. It's a bit like buying a house or something in the UK, right?
Yeah.
You could get gazumped
Yeah.
at literally every
Yeah.
point.
Yeah.
You could
Yeah.
get gazumped after a third date. You could have gone through all of this,
exactly.
right? And after the third date, they turn around
say,
and go,
"I don't want you
know
anymore."
What?
Yeah,
I feel
change
like
my
it's
mind.
still kind of like it's a friend thing.
Yeah.
And
and after a year, you've often, not often, but you've had a year, and
but
then
that's
they
a
go,
relationship. I mean, that I'm not
okay.
talking
Oh,
about.
you mean
I'm
just
talking
wham,
about
bam,
just in
thank you,
terms of
ma'am.
sex. I'm
Yeah,
talking in
okay.
terms of sex.
Yeah.
I mean, at that point, you've had sex with them.
Yeah.
But in terms of sex, which is, is a big draw for what draws men to dating initially.
Well, that's all that draws them, yes.
I mean, largely.
Women, largely.
Yeah.
Women are drawn for what they can get out of you and for future and for somebody to look after their kids. Andrew's married, again, for the third time. He met this woman. She's got 2 little girls, 3 and 4. The wife is she's like a counsellor, but she tests kids for neurodiversity. She's got her own business, so she's a macha. Big fat girl, because they went to his wedding in the country. Big, huge girl. He's given up work and he's the carer for these 2 little kids. So she's climbed in and she's got it all. She goes
but
to
you
work,
see, that's
she
a good
earns the money.
relationship. Because what a relationship
She earns the money, give
is
and
one
take,
person.
yeah.
It's one. You have something I want, and let's face it, Andrew. He's never really made it big in the telly world. He's probably like a pig in shit. He's getting what he wants. And
No,
she's
I
getting what she
understand that.
wants.
I understand that. It's not for me and it's not for you. I understand that. But what I'm saying about that is, I don't know what I'm saying about. I suppose the age of 50-something, because he's 50-something. I mean, I suppose he's found it. But he's the last guy I would imagine. He's such a big talker. And, this last guy I would ever have thought would give up work and look after 2 little girls of 3 and 4. I wouldn't even want my kids near him, my little girls. But there you go.
Yeah.
So, it's what one can give and what one takes. You're right. Okay, that sounds good.
Cool.
It was good. There was lots going on there.